I'm sure you've all heard or watched Oppenheimer. The movie explores the Allied forces, or mainly American point of view, of how the A-bomb was created and its consequences. Without giving away any spoilers, Oppenheimer is missing one important element throughout its runtime. That is the horrifying and disturbing aftermath of the atomic bomb on the Japanese people. Right now, Oppenheimer is all over the cinemas, reminding us of how the very atomic bomb that ended World War II came about. But there's already a movie that portrays the event from the victim's point of view. The movie is called Barefoot Gen. Barefoot Gen is an animated adaptation of the first half of Keiji Nakazawa's manga, offering a first-hand look at the consequences of an atomic bomb dropped on two lively cities during World War II. Welcome to Anioffee. Today we will take a deep dive into the terrifying tragedy of the atomic bombings as presented by Keiji Nakazawa. A little caution before we proceed, the subject of this video might be a little disturbing than our usual videos. With that said, proceed if you have the stomach to digest certain graphic imagery and information. We need to familiarize ourselves with the author to fully understand the pain behind this film. Keiji Nakazawa is an example of the often unseen consequences of war. Nakazawa, born in 1939, was a normal child like the rest of us. He had friends, a loving family, and a positive outlook on life itself. However, everything was stripped away from him on August 6, 1945, when the US Army dropped a nuclear warhead on his beloved home, Hiroshima. The bomb not only destroyed two cities and killed thousands of people, but it also crushed thousands of dreams, hopes, and aspirations. Nakazawa, who was only 9 years old at the time, had to witness most of his helpless family, including his infant sister, die at the hands of the atomic bomb. This tragedy may have sparked his inner artist, and he found a way to channel his inner conflicts through cartoons. The tragedy of Hiroshima and Nagasaki was hinted at throughout his work, and eventually it came full circle in the form of Barefoot Gen. This was a disturbingly beautiful way for Nakazawa to come to terms with the tragedy he had witnessed. Pre-bombing. Barefoot Gen warmly introduces us to a loving family of 5 living in war-torn Japan. In the heart of Hiroshima, young Gen Nakaoka lives with his parents Daikichi and Kimie, and his siblings Eiko and Shinji. Despite the hardships of wartime, the film adopts a cheerful tone, portraying everyday life as the Nakaoka family navigates food shortages and air raid warnings. It is calm before a storm. However, the terrors of war still prevail, as we can actually see the severity of the food shortages when even the children's innocent play becomes all about trying to fill their little bellies. In one of the scenes, Gen and his little brother Shinji come home starving when their mother hands them a sweet potato. The two start chasing around to take a bite until Eiko gently takes it away from them, reasoning that they have to feed it to their malnutrition mother, who has their little sister in her belly. Otherwise, the baby would die. This scene perfectly sets up the tone of the movie and presents a disturbing feel to the audience. And so despite lightweight, happy, and everyday light-like tones, behind it all, the movie shows us this solemnly depressing reality, highlighting the scarcity of basic needs in the family's life. At one point, poor Shinji is so hungry that in his innocence he asks his mom if he can eat the bones of the fish after she's done. And we see the mother helplessly break down. It's very emotional how the movie has depicted the children's innocence in scenes such as these, and the desperation of Japan just trying to get by. An innate awareness of what's to come for the land of Hiroshima. Meanwhile, Daikochi, the father, is the embodiment of resistance and hard work, and often tells his kids to live like wheat, strong and unspoiled, despite being trampled on. He's so extremely critical of the war. To me, the father stood out as a symbol that stressed the need for peace regardless of boundaries, nationalities, and ethnicities, and being mature about accepting one's faults so the world can move on towards a war-free life. His father's feelings about abolishing war show that it is something beyond national lines and affects all of humanity. There's no patriotism needed to say it's right or wrong. It is wrong in the end. The film subtly reminds us that war knows no borders, and its consequences leave an everlasting impact on countless lives. In a way, Daikochi is the embodiment of Nakazawa's thoughts and opinions. Also, the animation of the movie really brings the emotions within it more prominently. It has an old animation style, which is something that I actually prefer in this subject, because sometimes visuals can be so strong that the real depth of the scene drowns out in processing the details and color. I love the traditional animation and a simple color palette that goes on to be even simpler when heavy scenes like when bombing and killing are shown to help us absorb the severity and gravity of the situation even more deeply. Think of it like this. The artists working on this film were presented with a blank canvas, and they had to fill it with their pain and color it with their trauma. The day of the bombing. Eventually, the fateful day arrives, and when it does, the movie takes a heart-wrenching turn. As Jen and his friends reach the school, they are greeted by the sight of a B-29 aircraft soaring overhead. Little do they know that this aircraft carries a devastating atomic bomb, which soon engulfs the entire city in destruction. It is an angel of death looming above their home. The graphics portrayals are self-explanatory, with heavy visuals as the characters and people are seen literally melting and vaporizing from radiation. It is something that hits you like a big slap in the movie that goes from a light-hearted slice of life tone to a sudden graphic and heavy tone. It hits you exactly like how the atom bomb might have felt. Well, as accurately as it can be depicted through animation at least. But I swear you feel a drop in your heart. You will sympathize with the people who don't know what was coming for them while they were going through their routine. It all happened in the blink of an eye. They didn't even get a chance to move. So Jen loses his friend in the blast and desperately searches for his family amidst the chaos. The scene of a horse lit ablaze and running through the bomb-hit rubble is as if symbolizing oncoming death. Soon Jen discovers his mother, Kime, and together they desperately attempt to save their trapped family members buried under the collapse, blazing house. Despite their efforts, they are unable to rescue them in time. The scene is very, very distressing, with Jen dragging away his pregnant mother, and just as the three of them are crushed to death, she goes totally crazy, laughing maniacally in her distress. With a heavy heart, Daikichi, Eiko, and Shinji tragically perish in the fire, as Jen and his mother stand by, feeling utterly helpless and devastated by the unfolding tragedy. Daikichi's final words to his son are to care for Kime and the baby, leaving a gut-punching moment etched in the memory of those left behind. This entire scene is a careful reminder of how those who are left behind in a certain tragedy have to live with the feeling of helplessness, the feeling that keeps haunting them throughout their lives. Maybe this is how Nakazawa felt when he experienced the tragedy. Thankfully, a kind neighbor comes to their aid. However, he leaves them in a safe spot where Kime goes into labor. Jen was the one running around desperate to find a midwife or a doctor, but everywhere he only sees these corpses' half-melted bodies, and in the end, the two had to deliver the baby alone. Kime gives birth to a sweet baby girl named Tomoko. In a bittersweet moment amid all the sorrow, but little Tomoko brings a ray of hope, showing that life can still thrive even in the darkest moments. I must highlight that the death of Jen's father, Daikichi, heavily symbolizes the ripping of the very essence of peace, since the man stood for it. However, the birth of their sister, Tomoko, marks that life still thrives despite the devastation, and that there's always something worth fighting for. Post-war.
We knew the world would not be the same. Few people laughed. Few people cried. Most people were silent. I remembered the line from the Hindu scripture, the Bhagavad Gita. Vishnu is trying to persuade the prince that he should do his duty, and to impress him takes on his multi-armed form and says, "Now I am become death, the destroyer of worlds." I suppose we all thought that one way or another.
The state of Hiroshima after the bomb is beyond tormenting, and once again the movie does a great job in depicting it. The first to come is the acid rain from the nuclear fallout that soon falls on the ruined city, the result of the bomb that sent radioactive material and debris into the atmosphere, and there's this scene with a mother dead with her two children in a tub that Jen comes across. In the days that come, Jen desperately hunts for food for his family. He stumbles upon soldiers handing out rice, but to his horror he finds them gathering dead bodies for mass graves. Meanwhile, Kime is so beyond malnourished that she's unable to produce milk for her newborn. And in harrowing detail, the movie even shows hungry babies suckling on dead mothers as she desperately tries to find someone to feed Tomoko. Among the soldiers, Jen meets a trembling and sickly man who can't stop vomiting and defecating blood. It's a deeply distressing sight that reveals the harsh realities of war on both soldiers and civilians. Jen brings the sick soldier to a makeshift hospital, but sadly the soldier doesn't make it. The doctor is left puzzled, unsure of what caused the soldier's death. However, Jen does finally discover a ration storehouse. Only most of the rice inside has been damaged by the blast. Nevertheless, he manages to find a few bags of intact rice and brings them to his mother, along with some fresh vegetables. Tragically, the radiation has also affected Jen. Kime notices a few bald spots on her son's head, a painful reminder of the horrors they faced. The movie's heaviest moment comes when on August 15th, Jen and Kime bravely dig up the remains of their family from their former home. Nearby, they learn that Japanese have surrendered to the Allies, bringing an end to the war. But their prayers for peace come too late for their lost loved ones. Afterward, they find shelter in a simple makeshift shack, making do with the little rice they have left. One day, a young boy named Ryuta attempts to steal their rice, but Jen catches him red-handed. To his surprise, Ryuta bears a striking resemblance to Jen's late brother Shinji. Despite this, Jen and Kime decide to take Ryuta in when they discover he was orphaned by the bomb. In a touching act of compassion amidst the devastation, as they open their hearts to care for another child who has experienced the tragedy of war. However, this is where the movie really shows the emotional labor of the people in Hiroshima after the bombing, when while looking for work to feed their now newborn sister, Jen comes across a man who agrees to pay them if they tend to his ill-tempered brother Seiji, another bomb survivor, for 10 yen a day. The man is shown rotting and literally covered in mites, and the two boys are shown picking the mites with their bare hands. This scene can symbolize how the survivors are forced to pick up and clean up the corpses of those that were taken away during the war. In the beginning, Seiji is quite erratic. Of course, he's going through a lot, and eventually the boys grow tired of the mistreatment. They slap Seiji several times and quit. However, by this time, Seiji has grown fond and begun to see light in life again. With tears in his eyes, he pleads to them to return, expressing his gratitude for the kindness they showed him, treating him as more than just a rotting corpse. This is when Jen tells Ryuta to let his mother know where they are and spends the night with Seiji. It brings back his inspiration to paint, highlighting the birth of hope and the will to live. In the end, Seiji's brother pays them 100 yen as promised, and the boys head out to find milk for Tomoko. Only when they return home do they find that Tomoko is already dead. Another devastating death that shows the tragedies never end. The heartache of searching for hope amidst the ruins is powerfully conveyed, making the audience deeply empathize with the characters' struggles.
Release bomb.
Roger. Releasing bomb.
Despite all the tragedy, Barefoot Gen concludes on a slightly hopeful note. As wheat begins to grow in the ruined city, a symbol of life's resilience, Jen, Kime, and Ryuta release a paperboat lantern down the river. This simple yet profound act symbolizes hope, rebirth, and the enduring power of the human spirit. And today, modern-day Hiroshima is the very embodiment of the boat. It is found to have no hate despite what they went through. Not even to the Americans. In fact, they are the reflection of what Jen's father stood for, and rightfully so. Nevertheless, Barefoot Gen is a heartfelt and sentimental journey that leaves a lasting impression on its audience. There's also a sequel to this movie, but that's a discussion for another video. Don't get me wrong, Oppenheimer is a brilliant movie. It's quite beautifully written and produced, showing the unforeseen consequences of a person. However, the other side of the story was missing from it. I think it wouldn't have been appropriate to be shown in that film, so for that we have movies like Barefoot Gen. Throughout its runtime, the movie practically puts us through the same misery the people of that time felt. Thank you for watching this video. The subject of this video was slightly different from our usual videos, but if you like this video, make sure to leave a comment with your thoughts down below, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel to show your support for our channel so we can keep bringing you quality videos. We'll see you in the next one. Till then, goodbye.